The time my buddy left a loaded semi-truck halfway across the country. This is not my story, but I thought it's worthy to share. For background, my buddy is my now husband's best friend. They met while overseas and have been best friends and roommates on and off basically until we bought our own home. They are basically brothers and quite the package deal. Anyway, I'll call my buddy Mac. Mac was an over-the-road trucker at the time that this happened and was working for an entry-level company. Those companies have their place since they help people acquire a CDL and the first year or two of experience so that other companies will be able to accept you. Insurance reasons mostly. Unfortunately, the downside to companies like these are as follows. 1. Inexperienced drivers. 2. Many of the instructors are also fairly inexperienced. 3. Pay as mediocre for industry standards. 4. The dispatchers often ask for unreasonable, undrivable tasks. Don't award home time very easily. And you're basically just a number. We generally put up with companies like this at first to get our feet wet and gain those precious miles and years to make us more hireable down the road, so to speak. Anyway, Mac had been driving for this company for approximately a year when he was at the time halfway across the country from his home base when he got a phone call. His best friend, my current husband, was in the hospital with a potentially fatal infection. Mac immediately called dispatch to inform them that he was making an immediate U-turn and heading straight home. Here's where the compliance comes in. They told him that if he deviates from his route in any way that he would be fired immediately. They didn't care that he might lose his best friend and told him to suck it up and do his job. He said, "Fine, I quit." He pulled over at the nearest truck stop, parked the truck thousands of miles from his home base and left it. He cleaned it out and took a Greyhound home, if memory serves. His old company had to have his tractor and fully loaded trailer towed thousands of miles. Not only that, but they were late on the precious delivery of what was on his trailer. Let me tell you, nothing about that is cheap. Mac now works for a smaller, family-owned company and is home daily or at least every weekend and is paid much better. Hope you enjoyed. This story always cracks me up. In days gone by, I was dead heading to a pickup and had transmission problems in Punxsutawney, PA. Mechanic told my company it would take a couple weeks to fix, so they told me to find a bus to pick up a tractor in Pittsburgh from a driver who quit. No buses. They told me to find a taxi. No taxis. They told me to find something. So the limo driver and I had a nice chit-chat all the way to Pittsburgh. My now deceased buddy did similar. He took a load from a broker, delivered it and was never paid. Call it $1,000 for discussion. Tried to collect for a month or 3 and let it go. That broker only used him sporadically, so he figured F it. A couple years later he is asked to take a load. Signed bill of lading, puts the goods in his name. He drives it to his neighborhood and sits on it. A week later dispatch is calling all hot and bothered. Like screaming hot. He calmly explains the many months past due invoice for $1,000. This is a $1,500 load. So pay me both invoices now. And I'll have it at the destination post haste. Beaten at their own game, they sent a driver with a check. Check cleared and goods delivered. They never called him again. Good riddance. Believe me, this happens quite often. The trucking company just dispatches someone from a nearby hub to drive it the rest of the way. I don't know of a driver who doesn't have a "leave the truck" fantasy. Mine was to leave it in the departure drop-off zone of a major airport. Figured that would get the company name on the news. In practical terms, I understand that companies can deduct the recovery cost from your paycheck. We had an opposite story at my employer. Driver refused to leave the truck or follow dispatch orders. They arranged to have another driver take his load. And when that driver confirmed he had it, the company shut down the truck remotely and called the local police to have driver removed. My friend did that when the company wouldn't replace bald tires. As a driver, we've all had those moments. I was always too afraid of getting hit with truck abandonment on my DAC to do it. Luckily, safety is always the buzzword at mega carriers, especially when put into writing. I no longer work for a mega carrier, and I got a stupid good local job. But boy, I never want to go back to that. As a taxi driver in Dallas back in 2002, I picked up a guy from a truck stop who had basically just abandoned his truck after it needed some kind of clutch repair. The company he was working for refused to allow the Loves to work on it, citing that all repairs must be done at an approved shop on a list. And while every other Loves was listed, this one was newly built and not on the list, so they insisted on him completing the delivery even though the truck wouldn't even go into any gear. This guy told them where to stick it, grabbed his backpack and CB radio, and called for a cab to take him back to Oklahoma City. He didn't have the $308 the fare came out to, but he did have $200 and that CB radio. His wife met us right off the highway and told him she called her brother and found him another company to work for that would keep him in state, and he was crying and hugging her when I headed back to Dallas. That was a good night. Had a buddy who worked in the office for a trucking company that tended to run out of money before all the paychecks were cashed on the regular. He used to get his check and head straight to the bank to cash it because it was likely the last few people would get their checks bounced. The company shut down one day, like in the middle of the day with no warning. Just came out and said, "Go home. We're out of business." All of their OTR drivers were stranded. No gas cards, no support and no pay coming. One of the drivers pulled his rig over and sold the tires off it to buy a place ticket home. Had a coworker a couple years ago. We bagged people groceries and did cart retrieval from the parking lot. One day he gets a call that his ex-girlfriend, we still close, just realized they weren't right for each other, had passed away. He asked to leave early and was told basically, "It's just your ex. Suck it up." So he quit on the spot and I went with him because fuck that place. Orange? Shoe? Or sure wished I finished training? This is a common thing in the trucking industry. The company is lucky the driver parked the rig at a truck stop. In my very small town, a few years back, a driver pulled his rig smack across the main road, got out with the truck running, locked the door, and walked away. I had to make a 20-mile detour to get home from work, and still thought it was hilarious. There's far too many companies out there with the "you need to decide what's more important, my company or your life, or family, friends, etc." attitude. That may have worked in 1950, but not today when people have 3 to 4 careers in a lifetime. My current husband power move right here. I had a very good friend do something similar. He backed his trailer into a bay, disconnected, and pulled out to wait for his trailer to get loaded. Meanwhile, the warehouse workers were on strike, so he called dispatch to find out what to do. They said wait for the trailer, don't leave or you'll be fired, etc. He was supposed to be home for his anniversary. He had the time off long in advance, but they said stay with the trailer. He ended up driving deadhead back to the hub, cleaned out his truck and quit without saying a word. He's never had to do that before. or since. This is awesome. Why can't these companies even try to be human? At corporate level, they should have a contingency in place for accidents, illness, or a family emergency. He should have sued them for constructive dismissal too as the cherry on the cake. Hopefully they will think twice before they try this on someone else. We all need a friend like Mac. I work in the office of a small family-run company and we have flown a driver home for similar reasons. This story makes me sad to hear. My husband taught me to drive in the 80s. Not many women out on the road. I got pulled over 3 times for being a woman. I had suffered a gallbladder attack and had become infected. Went to the hospital in Seattle. Doctor wanted to keep me, but my dispatcher guaranteed to get us home. Yay. From Seattle to Portland. Portland to LA. LA to Dallas. Dallas to Denver. Denver to SLC. Home. We cleaned the truck out and left. As someone who worked with a lot of day trip drivers who occasionally did overnights, none of them ever wanted to intentionally screw our company over. We were lucky, but we also treated them well. With such a shortage of CDL drivers, especially tanker and hazmat, we wanted them happy. It was a great relationship. That company clearly did not believe in the value of their drivers. Great story. My husband took a trucking job years ago and several states away from home. The HR guy told him a salary and benefits that were worth it, and they flew him to his starting point. He went through orientation, benefit sign-up, etc., and discovered the company had just been sold and the pay, benefits were now significantly less. Same HR guy though. As my husband was driving the load back toward the delivery location near our hometown, I did some research and discovered the company sale happened before his interview. HR guy lied to his face about the pay to get him to take the job. Husband parked the truck in an empty shopping center near home and I picked him up. I think he might have called to tell them where the truck was, which was more than they deserved. That truck was in that parking lot for months and we laughed every time we passed it.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.